Age Tech Innovators.
Hello, and welcome to Age Tech Innovators, the podcast where we explore how technology is transforming the way we care for our vulnerable population. I'm Monty, your host, and each week we chat with inspiring leaders who are making a real difference in the lives of vulnerable people, sharing innovations and ideas that help support those who need it most. Join us as we work together to build a brighter, more caring future for everyone. Now, let's dive in. So, I have the absolute pleasure of talking to Justus today. Justus, run me through who you are and what you do in 60 seconds.
I'm Justus Decher. Um, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a patient, and I'm a caregiver. And I developed a remote patient monitoring platform in 2013. So I think we were early on in the remote patient monitoring platform, and we've developed it to what it is today. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. I'm super excited for today's conversation. So, you mentioned you are an entrepreneur and you've also been a patient. And so, I'm always curious about how did you enter into the remote patient monitoring space? How did you decide and why did you decide to create some of your own innovation?
It's a crazy story. Um, necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention. And after spending 25 years out in Silicon Valley, I literally almost worked myself to death. I moved back to the Midwest, and in 2010, I ended up having some cardiac problems. I went in and they told me I needed a quadruple bypass. So I had the quad bypass, I made it through, and then for the next 6 months, I raced to the emergency department 22 times.
Whoa.
It was like I had one of those Baskin Robbins frequent flyer cards, and they'd punch my ticket every time I'd get in there. But throughout that whole um, journey that I went in, um, all the nurses and doctors were great. They didn't look at me or look down at me because I was running there and essentially wasting their time. But it was, I couldn't determine or detect what was going on in my chest. I just knew something was going on. I didn't know if it was gas or angina or costochondritis, or if it was a heart attack. I had no idea. So I was scared, and literally I almost scared myself to death. And then I woke up and I went, my God, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I leveraged on my time in Silicon Valley, where I ran a think tank and design firm. I was the VP of business development, and I was around some just off the planet smart guys, PhDs from Cornell and Oxford and MIT and Stanford, and you name it. These guys were a plethora of patents, and I found myself drinking from an intellectual reservoir. It was just amazing. And so here it just dawned on me, I can't keep doing this. I have to do something. So I leveraged on my technology background. I reached out to some of my friends who, at my company in Silicon Valley, we actually designed 65 stents for 35 major medical companies. We were um, literally a think tank and design firm. We were guns for hire. We were the absolute best in certain technologies like nickel titanium, which was the predecessor for all the stents. So that's how I got into this. I just went, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I went to my office in downtown Omaha, and I had this conference room with 3 walls that were whiteboards, and that's where I designed the system.
Wow, that is a story. And did you, in terms of the actual moment of conception of design, were you taking the years of experience from the think tank and in that room of whiteboards, putting it together, or were you working at that time with other people who were helping you iterate? What was the actual moment? What was that looking like?
Well, I leveraged in one of the areas in the I imagine some questions that you'll have going forward is that you don't reinvent the wheel. You go back and you look at something that could help or be the predicate for the technology. And as I did, fortunately, I ran across a huge company called TUNET, Qualcomm. And Qualcomm was the foundation, it was the hub, the vehicle for cellular technology to transmit the data. So then I started looking at Bluetooth and cellular devices to be able to communicate with it and send it to the cloud. So that's actually inception wise. I failed to mention that probably the impetus to the design was the U.S. Army Land Warrior System. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to look at me on LinkedIn, but Monty, in 1999 and 2000, some really smart guys from a 900 PhD think tank in Menlo Park engaged with our company, Pacific Consultants, and we vied for the U.S. Army Land Warrior contract, and that was the new American digitalized fighting man. Everything from helmet-mounted displays, so you could see the topology, and also utilize as a camera, an integrated weapon system, Trimble navigation, dead reckoning module, 2 this is so cool, 2 Pentium computers on either hip, and I asked that you go out and look at me because this was so cool. And then before you know it, as we designed this system and was challenged by the behemoths like Raytheon and Motorola's and stuff, Silicon Valley David slayed defense industry giants. And we just obliterated these guys because we had innovative technologists who looked at life and said, let's utilize COTS, COTS, commercial off-the-shelf technology, things that had already been built. I'm not familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with a computer store in Silicon Valley, but it's called Fry's Electronics. And I was in the room with these generals, and they approached my CEO, who was Hugh Duffy, and he says, "How did you do this? How could you design this system?" And we had gone in and actually gotten like a fishing vest
Look,
and hung these things all up in this, and it hodgepodge um, this vest with all this technology, and it was like, and we used the internet, and the general was like, how are you getting transferring this information? And he says, the internet. You
it's gonna
guys
be big.
designed this. So that's what I did. I leveraged on that technology, and we actually had, utilizing existing technology, we actually licensed, I think it was 250,000 lines of code from UC Berkeley, as I call it. I affectionately call Berkeley Berkeley. So,
Yeah.
sorry, my humor's a little off.
No, it's fine. For our
Um,
listeners in Berkeley, they'll find it.
and we built on those lines of code. By the time we were done with version 1.1 of the Land Warrior system, it was about 750,000 lines of code. Now, that took us to 9/11. And when 9/11 hit, I had 157 units on pre-production line of the Land Warrior system. And overnight, some agency people with initials in the alphabet came in and took those 157 units and donned them on the 10th Mountain Ranger Division, who was dispatched to Afghanistan like on an overnight basis. Some of it's almost chilling, but that happened overnight. And here our guys were over there with our equipment chasing bin Laden.
What?
Yeah, it was seriously just to be on the precipice of technology and being able to have our soldiers engage like that. One of the, and I know I just I did a little segue here, but all you had to do as a paratrooper or jumping into an area, you would always have to go and meet in a specific area, and it was all coordinated beforehand. Well, now all they had to do is turn on their equipment, and in their helmet-mounted display, they were able to see through probably the first mesh network, MESH, the first mesh network, be able to see as pins their fellow soldiers where they were. So they could aggregate all that data and then go towards the objective or the target. So that was a roundabout way of telling you the story about how I leveraged on that technology. I knew what was available out there, and so I started leveraging that, and that was the foundation of being able to translate what was in my head, my thoughts, that I needed to know that when I had this pain in my chest, that my blood pressure was okay. It was my anxiety.
Yeah.
It was me having a panic attack, maybe. Those were all real things. And incidentally, and that's a great marker, is that's when I first learned, this is in 2010, uh, 2012, that area. I first learned that physiological, like blood pressures and blood glucose and things like that, were also integrated with behavioral health, mental health, well-being. And as we've progressed on with our system and our developments, that we integrated all those mental health, behavioral factors into our physiological platform to be able to address those issues along with the physiological issues.
So you start to pull together more of a holistic idea of the person.
Yes, yeah. And listen, and this is social, your social determinants of health, your mental, behavioral, your physiological, all those things have, they're essential in determining what the outcomes of a patient will be.
Because there's certain frameworks of questions you can ask to determine people's risk based on their
Yeah,
mental landscape. How are
sure.
you, so having integrated this into your platform, how are you collecting both the physiological and the emotional slash mental aspect into your platform?
Okay, so great question. Thank you. Um, that requires the conversational piece because the nurses are the best. They like to reach out and touch you and say, "How are you doing?" So when you notice that a marker, a physiological marker, is elevated, you want to reach out and touch them. You also want to give them the tools that they can do some of those surveys on their own. But let's just take a small example. If you're monitoring a patient and John has some elevated blood pressure, well, he might be strenuously doing something working, okay? Or he could be not taking his medicine. It's a number of things that could happen. So you're looking for trending to be able to determine, is this something that I need to elevate or escalate to the next level? Do I need to take it to the doctor? Because the one thing that you'll find out in the barriers or the reticence about remote patient monitoring is doctors don't really want any part of this. They like the information in aggregate, but they don't want to be bothered, and nor should they be bothered unnecessarily.
So how you have a platform and it's aggregating, collecting critical information around the patient. One of the questions which comes up quite a lot from new tech innovations is around market penetration and bringing an idea to wide scale adoption. This seems to be a challenge. I was talking to a policymaker not too long ago, and she was saying that lots of tech businesses over here, lots of customers over here, sometimes they don't communicate as much as they should. How did you overcome this?
Oh gosh, that's a daily venture. Are you kidding me? So long as there's an old adage, everyone has one. I think you know what I'm talking about, but that's the greatest challenge that I believe is ensuring adoption. And the biggest thing is everyone wants or should want their product to be ubiquitous. Okay. And assimilation actually effective IT assimilation, okay, the interoperability, because no one wants 20 silos. No one wants to learn 20 different systems. The integration, the interoperability is paramount. And if you don't have it, okay, then it's even going to be more difficult for you to, for that adoption across multi-platforms to engage. The other thing is simplicity. Jeff and I call it, Jeff's my partner, we call it the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. You know, it's like you want to take one button and press it and walk away. And if you don't have that simplicity, they're not going to engage. Wow, how do you put a app on a smartphone to baby boomers and expect people who have been in rural America to figure out when their Bluetooth disconnects? You're not going to do it. You know, the greatest thing I love right now is Elon Musk and the Starlink. I believe that's our next layer to God. Maybe I shouldn't have said this on a broadcast.
If it's any consolation, I think he's a really good innovator. I think he makes amazing products and pushes the world
Yes,
forward. So nothing
come
wrong
on.
with Elon Musk.
Anyone that can take a rocket ship and recapture it, I mean, was that phenomenal? Come on.
Crazy. Yeah.
This is disruption. Okay, this is that's why I go back to necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention. If you do not have a need for it, a personal need that your family member or yourself or you're scared to death, you know, you don't generally think in those realms. You just go about life, you know, doing your thing. Myself, I always think there's got to be a better way to do this. To really look at things and go, wait a minute, guys, come on. You know, that's why I can never work for anyone. Yeah, but they were smart. And listen, I've met the best of them. I've had dinner with Wozniak and met Stephen Jobs. You know, he actually, when he went to Next, he was my next door neighbor, and he wanted to buy our factory. And you know, these are just things these are the disruptors, the people who sit there and go, you know, we could do this. If we did this, we could do that. I hope I've answered your question adequately.
You have, you really have. I appreciate it. And so we're in this interesting space where technology is being adopted more and more, and it's ever question. It's a question which is always top of our minds, which is how do we ensure wide scale adoption? And that is simplicity. You've been running MyVitalz since 2013, so
Yeah.
that's now 12 years.
Yep.
With the technology that is ever arising and ever being used in this space, where do you see some of the most exciting areas for opportunities and innovation for the next 13 years?
Well, let me caution everyone. The moment you are not relevant, this is like go take a vacation. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. In 2014, and offline, if you'd like to, Monty, I'll share a screen with you and show you that in 2014. Oh, let's go back just a little bit more.
Shall I just just interject very quickly? Is this just to get clarification? Would you like me to cut this bit
Oh
out,
no,
or
no, no.
okay, no?
Yeah. I'm just saying for validation purposes, I
Okay,
want
I'm
to
ready. Yeah,
show you something. Okay.
awesome. I'm
Um,
excited. I'm leaning on the edge of my seat right now.
okay. So, God, I guess it was 2010. I found myself in downtown Omaha, Nebraska. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, what am I going to find here? And it's in the old market area. And I ran into these bunch of young, off the planet smart, hybrid actuarial guys from University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and computer science guys and girls, excuse me, um, from University of Nebraska, Omaha. And this hybrid that they created was as actuarials in, the insurance industry. And then all of a sudden, these these guys became data scientists. And I'm looking at these, they were they're the first really smart data analytics. You ask where things were going, machine language, AI, of course. That's how you that's how you keep from being non-relevant, or you adopt it and become relevant. Because what are you going to do with all this data that I'm collecting? So in 2014, no joke, Monty, this one one guy, his name is Tad Wood, and he's now actually in Palo Alto, or as we called it, Shallow Alto. um, I commissioned Tad on Tableau to create. This is right around when Obamacare came out, the Patient Protected Affordable Care Act. And what did that mean? It was a 30-day rehospitalization. It said if I go in for a heart attack and they discharged me from the hospital, and for any reason, for a UTI, a urinary tract infection, I get rehospitalized, Medicare is not going to pay for my rehospitalization. That was incredibly expensive because at the time, I think it was $12,400 just to get readmitted. Plus, you're racking up tests and daily things. I mean, it was crazy. So these hospitals were like, they were being judged big time. So I went to Tad and I said, look, I look at life not from a regular EHR standpoint. I look at it as a longitudinal health record. So everything you think, do, and say, if you put that in context, all of that is meaningful data. So that's going back to when we talked about SDOH and mental health and well-being, and the Wong Baxter's smiley faces for the pain levels and things like that. It's all meaningful data. Everything you collect on that individual is meaningful. It has an impact someplace along the journey, and we're not paying attention to that even today. So I commissioned Tad in Tableau, and he went out and he found this 5,000 patient database of CMS, in CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And today that is still running. So So what did I do? I took the um, four silos that Obamacare was all about. Um, CHF, pneumonia, an AMI, and um, did I say pneumonia? Let's see, COPD. So I took those four disease states, or um, yeah, disease states, and I said, what are the predicate or other diseases that go alongside those four? Like for emphysema, it might be bronchitis, or So, so what we did is we grouped each one of them, and so then we had all this data. And then I said, what if I throw a random set of numbers at this? Like, let's try physiological. Let's say we throw blood pressure and temperature and weight, and we throw that at these individual patients, and then determine or predictability or the propensity of them being hospitalized 30, 60, and 90 days. And it's
And
still running. It's still running today. So
are you able to understand the accuracy of this predictive mechanism?
no, because I'm not actually running I'm just throwing a random set of data. They
Okay.
have their frailty index, and yes, we could in a real live demonstration, and that's what I'm introducing to um, the hospital group that I'm involved with right now. So
That's
I've
very cool.
I have shown them the randomness and the predictability of this, and then between their knowledge of these frequent flyers, like diabetics, or that's a predicate disease that they're going to have heart disease probably, and quite possibly obesity. And so there's a slippery slope, and that if they can, with the toolkit from remote patient monitoring, start monitoring them and have them as in the very beginning, in the adaptability phase, was that none of these baby boomers wanted somebody looking in on them. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, they didn't want that. But you know what changed that was COVID.
Yep.
We found ourselves being socially isolated. We were, you know, let's face it. I mean, these guys were like, "Hey, I don't want to be around anybody." To, "Hey, can somebody look in on me? I'm having some chest pains." you know, I'm freaking out over here in rural Nebraska. Can somebody please tell me if I'm okay? Because I can't get the doctor on the phone, or you know, I feel really reticent about going in, knowing
Co-
that these tools were there.
COVID
Just
really did fast track the whole development in the space in a
yeah,
weird side
yeah,
beneficial way.
yeah.
Justice, I'm conscious of time and I've got two more questions I really want to ask you because I'd love to hear
Sure.
your perspective on it.
Sorry, I'm
So
long-winded.
no, no, not at all. I'm honestly really enjoying our conversation. I'm conscious that so the first question is if we fast forwarded the clock. So imagine the year is 2025 right now. If we fast forwarded the clock 30 years, 40 years, and you look in the mirror, and suddenly you look in the mirror and you're a bit, wow, and you're an elderly man. You've got wrinkles, maybe 50 years from now, you've got lots of time. 50 years from now,
Oh,
you look in the mirror and you're an elderly man. What type of technology would you like to use on a daily basis that makes your life as enjoyable as possible?
let's 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 address the first obvious standpoint is that I would be well into 120 years old and no one would want to look at me. I would want to smooth out those wrinkles, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of duct tape, you know.
Botox.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one right there. Um, okay, so God, the way things are going right now is that, you know, if you look back, there was a movie called Soylent Green. And Soylent Green, oh my God, I'm having a hard time thinking about who the actor was. But he walked outside this building to what looked like a parking meter and he pulled out a Motorola flip phone. Okay. Now, that's so where we're going is some of the things that we have seen in Star Treks and those futuristic movies will become real. You know, let's face it. Look at drones right now, okay, and driverless cars and flying cars. You know, like the Jetsons or the technology that I believe will be available to us are scans that will be able to scan our. I'm sorry for the ringing.
It's all right, no worries.
We'll be able to have a scan that'll determine what's happening in our body. A full scan, a body scan, probably. The genetic disposition is that, let's face it, I didn't just develop heart disease. It's in my DNA. I mean, on the paternal side of my family, everyone except for my father died at 46. Okay? Next week I turned 72. Okay? That was mostly the drugs in the 60s, though.
I'll live forever then. I'll remove that from the podcast.
You know, the deal is that knowledge, that information has not been shared across that EHR, which should be in the longitudinal EHR that says, this is my family history and dynamics. And then you add your spouse's DNA and you're procreating. What's going to happen then? So this kid gets heart disease and schizophrenia, you know? It's like, what are you handing down to this kid? These are things that, without being real specific, I want to give a generality here, is that we will be able to know what's going on physiologically from wearables or patches. You know, it's, you know, some of the stuff you see today. God, can I say this?
Go for it.
Attenuation, your voice.
Yep.
There are algorithms being worked on today to determine just from your voice and the attenuation of what's going on with you.
You can detect depression from people's tonality. Crazy.
Yeah. So, wow, it's going to be pretty cool. You're going to be able to, you know, it'll efficientize everything. But the question is, will we get out of our way with the healthcare system? I got to go back to COVID, and there was this really smart CMS director. Her name was Seema Verma. And when we figured out that, especially with the underserved and the at the most at risk people, the I found myself that I won a DHHS contract, and I dispensed glucometers throughout the state because in the public health departments and the federally qualified health centers and the rural health clinics, they couldn't go out and visit their patients. COVID, people didn't want them in their house. They didn't want to go to their house. They did, but, there were issues. So in a very quick instance, we were able to communicate with that patient through technology. And that technology was reliable data. And guess what? It was date and time stamped. And guess what? It didn't rely on a human to remember what that reading was. Okay? So when you put that all in aggregate, you start that interoperability.
Super interesting.
That meaningful data that has been collected from multiple sources, some ubiquitous, some not. And if you can create that interoperability, then you have a seamless thread of information that says, okay, Monty, your DNA shows that you have a predisposition for, girls with breast cancer, things like that. So that's where I think it's going.
I'm very, very excited to understand in depth what's happening physically and psychologically and genetically. And that's actually, as you mentioned, the personalized medicine and gene analysis are some of the other answers I had from other guests about where some of the biggest opportunity will be in this space.
Right.
Justus, last question.
Sure.
In a couple of sentences, conscious of time. And the last question is, there's a lot of new talent, smart people looking to enter into the remote patient monitoring space, the health tech space. What encouraging words of advice would you offer to these listeners, people who want to bring innovation into the space? What would you say to them?
Understand their demographic. Who's your audience? Look at it from genuinely problem solving that need, the pain points of that individual. Don't reinvent the wheel. Those are the top three. Okay. Keep it simple, stupid.
Kiss.
Or, I mean, come on, those are the four most prominent off the top of my head that I noted, that I think is, that's what I did. I took commercial off-the-shelf technology, leveraged some points, and designed a system.
And that lowers the barrier to entry, I think, in people's minds. Sometimes people think they have to have a computer science degree from MIT or Imperial, big up Imperial. But actually, you can go a long way with bringing in new innovation that hasn't been adapted for this use case.
And by the way, congratulations on mastering Imperial College.
It's not why I brought it up.
Some off-the-planet smart people come out of there, okay?
Yeah, hopefully I'll meet one at some point. To be one would be amazing. Well,
Yeah.
Justice, it's been an absolute honor, and I'm a bit sad because I feel like we could have talked for many, many more hours, and this has gone so quickly. So, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge, or a small percentage of your knowledge for our listeners. I'm sure they'll find it really valuable, and enjoy the rest of your day.
That's what's left from the 60s.
I'll hopefully in the sci-fi future, I'll create a time machine and then go back to
Yeah.
the 60s.
Oh my God.
And I'll see you
Easily
there.
love it. See you, Monty. Thank you.
Amazing. Peace. Bye bye.